Okay, so this is the next series of City of Pittsburgh neighborhoods. Today we're going to do the West End, which basically is the neighborhoods in the city limits of Pittsburgh, essentially bounded by the Ohio River on the north side, and then probably going south here, Interstate 376, and then it's kind of like a C shape. So those are the main boundaries, I guess you could call it. The West End, if you want cash flow, that's probably your best bet in the city limits, mainly because a lot of the neighborhoods are a little cheaper, better rent to price ratios. It's kind of like the forgotten section of the city in a way, just because in the East End is where everything's happening. So obviously, the further you get from that, the more out of the action you are, so to speak. And the fact that the West End neighborhoods here, you have to go through basically the other side of the city across rivers too. So it just makes it a little harder to get to. It's more accessible to either downtown or even like shooting out to the airport and whatnot. But anyway, starting with the neighborhoods themselves, there is actually a neighborhood called West End. So it's a very small little strip here, essentially right across the West End Bridge from the casino and the North Shore here. It's an interesting neighborhood because most of it's in the flood zone. They have a little decent main drag here on South Main Street. They've tried to revitalize it and there have been attempts to, and it just never really fully caught steam, even though you would think it would, being where it's located. But I think the issue there is it's not very walkable to anything outside of it, just because you have this interchange they put in connecting the West End Bridge, Steuben Street, West Carson Street. It's a very busy intersection, so it's essentially, if you want to be a pedestrian, it's hard to get across the West End Bridge, especially if you're on a bike or something. So it hasn't picked up a ton yet, but I think it has potential. The whole flood zone thing's been an issue as well, because most of the main drag is in the flood zone from Sawmill Run here. So it's just kind of sleepy down there, but it is a neighborhood. Don't really see a ton of houses selling just because it's not a lot of houses there, but we have seen a few higher price renovated properties sell, I think, just given the location. And then going up the hill from the West End itself, the next neighborhood would be Elliott here. Same thing here. It's a great location. You can get some really cheap houses in Elliott. Like, everything's basically under $100,000 if it needs any sort of rehab done to it for a single family house. So definitely a good rent to price ratio neighborhood. Elliott is nice because it has the West End overlook, which is actually a really nice view of the city. It's kind of underrated compared to Grandview overlook. Gets a lot of the publicity here, but the West End overlook's pretty cool as well. But as you get closer to the overlook, there's actually a really nice little section here, and then it can get a little gritty kind of right off Chartiers Avenue here in Lorenz. So in the neighborhood itself, as you start to get away from the overlook. And then I would say the nicest section of Elliott is on the other side of Steuben Street here, whereas it starts to get a little better as you get past Chartiers in this section. But then as you go on the other side of Steuben Street, up the hill a little bit closer to West End Park, it's actually pretty decent there. So that's a nice little pocket, I think, of Elliott that has a lot of upside there, because you can kind of take advantage of the cheaper prices of the neighborhood as a whole. So that's Elliott. Right beside Elliott, continuing to go up this way, is Sheridan. Sheridan kind of has three sections, so great housing stock in Sheridan. Like, it's one of those neighborhoods that you would think at some point has to pick up, just because it's a great location and the housing stock's great. Like, a lot of nice, bigger properties that have some good character and whatnot. But east of Sheridan Park is probably the roughest section of Sheridan. So definitely the cheapest, but it's the grittiest as far as that goes. So basically, the closer you are to the river. And then as you go on the other side of Sheridan Park, it starts to get a little nicer here, kind of bounded by Chartiers Avenue in the park. And then the nicest section of Sheridan is as you go up the hill closer to Middletown Road here. like Middletown, Berry Street, this whole section here, bounded by Middletown, Berry, and Chartiers. It's actually really nice little section of Sheridan. So that can be another nice pocket neighborhood to take advantage of. And then Esplin as well is very small little section here above Sheridan, between McKees Rocks and Sheridan. It's kind of similar to Sheridan. Like, it's, I would say, a little more urban, whereas maybe Sheridan's a little more residential, but cheap here as well. Same thing with a lot of these neighborhoods. Going up the hill closer to Middletown, you do have two more neighborhoods here. So these are great little neighborhoods, Chartier City and then Wind Gap. I like both of them. It's nice, suburban, pretty safe neighborhoods here that are kind of just overlooked. So you can get a move-in ready house for under 200 here that's in a solid neighborhood. It's very residential, suburban type neighborhood. So Chartier City and Wind Gap, I'm definitely a fan of here over on the west end. And then going up closer here, we have Fairywood, which is a very interesting neighborhood. It's not really a lot of houses there, so it's mostly industrial. So I'll pull up the satellite. You just have a lot of industrial buildings here. Like, there's an Amazon building there, warehouses and whatnot. I think they are developing the rest of this. And then there's a few streets here of older houses, and then up West Prospect Avenue that goes into Ingram. Outside of that, it's this massive apartment complex called Emerald Gardens that they built, which I think they're pretty decent. So that's really all the residential that is in Fairywood. It's not really a legit neighborhood as far as residential homes goes, but it is technically a neighborhood. And then coming down here, Ingram and Crafton aren't in the city, but they're basically right in here with the West End neighborhoods. The neighborhoods kind of surround Ingram and Crafton like a backward C, basically. So getting into Crafton Heights, it's another kind of residential. You do have some 1950s homes, which are nice, like some brick ranches and stuff in Crafton Heights mixed with some older properties. But same thing there, just relatively affordable, close to everything. Good rent to price ratios in Crafton Heights as well. Just not trendy. It's the reason it's cheap. They're decent neighborhoods though. And then probably the nicest sections of the West End neighborhoods here, Westwood and Oakwood. They're just sleepy residential suburban type neighborhoods in the city. Desirable neighborhoods, but they're just affordable because they're kind of on the west here, away from everything. But I mean, very central locations. You can hop right on 376 to the airport. Downtown's very close. So Westwood and Oakwood, I think, are two neighborhoods that are definitely undervalued just because they're slept on a bit. So I could see them picking up in the future for sure as things kind of start to come over towards the west end. And then all that's left, I think, down here is, this one's an interesting neighborhood. It's technically still in the city. It's called East Carnegie. It's this section here, which is basically just directly across the highway from Carnegie, which is outside the city. So East Carnegie is maybe a little more urban of a neighborhood, but it's just this small section on the other side of Oakwood and Westwood here off 376 that, I mean, I don't mind it. It's relatively cheap as well. It's really kind of the common theme of these West End neighborhoods is they're definitely cheaper. If you want cash flow, that's probably a good spot. And I think they're somewhat undervalued just because of the fact that you can get a bunch of houses here under $200K for decent houses that are such great location compared to all of the amenities of the city and getting to the airport and everything.